almost never ever looks directly ahead. It's always he looking to the right, then he looks to the left, then he looks to the right, then he looks to the left. And on his right and on his left are teleprompter screens where he reads the words from. That's why he keeps looking left and right. This man is just an empty suit who is there to sell the agenda. He's got nothing to do with orchestrating it or deciding it. He's just there to sell it. He's one of his sales pitches is in effect with the sugar, explaining it away in another way, to encourage Americans to give up sovereignty over their own country, and that's happening all over the world.
And I find it interesting what you were saying. We passed an economic stimulus package the day before America passed an economic stimulus package, and anything like in the economic stimulus package, lots of Australians are getting lots of money to spend, and anything that looks that good on the outside, I'm thinking, what's going on here type thing. All linked again.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because all that we've talked about so far can be encompassed and brought into under one subject to see all parts of what we've talked about so far expressing themselves, and that's this global economic crash. It is a problem reaction solution on a global scale to offer the solution, which is a world central bank. Some newspapers are already talking about it now. We need a world central bank. I've been saying this is the agenda for nearly 20 years, and now they've crashed the economy to bring it about. Of course, if you create massive problems with currencies all over the world, what's the solution to that? We'll have a global currency, and the simplest way to do it is to have it electronic, they'll say. And what if you want to create a massive crash, or you want to really destroy something or somebody? A, you create the problem, and B, you get them to throw every weapon they have to react to the problem at the problem, and you make sure that it has no effect on the problem. So after that's happened, you've still got the problem, but now your pockets are empty in this economic situation. There's nothing else to throw at the problem. What's left? Total economic catastrophe. That's the idea. And it's designed to for many things, but one of them is to completely restructure the global finance, so it's in the hands of a group of people sitting around one table somewhere in the world, and that will control the finance of every country. In Europe now, the European Central Bank controls the finance, in effect, of the whole of Europe. They just want to take that one step further and put it on a world scale. So in Australia, they're throwing all this money at it. In America, they're talking about $3 trillion in borrowed money, overwhelmingly borrowed from China, much of it to save the banks that actually created it at the highest level on purpose. And in Britain, Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, has done the same, throwing vast amounts of money. And when it doesn't work, and it's not going to, because it's simple reason, it's not meant to. Then how are governments going to react to what's there then? They're not, and that's the idea, creating global economic catastrophe from which they can basically offer whatever solution that suits them, with the people saying, yeah, do it, please, anything, but we've got to stop this. And I've been describing recently this economic situation as like a controlled demolition of a building, where you see the charges go off, the puffs of smoke, and therefore, at that point there's a problem. And clearly we can see now there's an economic problem. But the building doesn't seem bizarrely to fall immediately the charges go off. There's a bizarre kind of split second when the building doesn't seem to move, and then it crashes very quickly. Well, in terms of this economic crash around the world, we're in that bizarre split second at the moment, and getting closer to the edge all the time, because they want to crash the global economy on a scale that it would be hard to comprehend by people who've lived through the last period of ups and downs, but nothing massive like the Great Depression. And economists in America now are talking about this is going to be much worse than the Great Depression, and I agree with them absolutely. Why? Because that's what it's meant to be.
So is this when the microchipping will come in, you believe, that a disaster of this magnitude will be very easy just to microchip everybody and the electronic, kind of way of life comes about?
Well, I'll tell you an interesting story. I met someone in America about 2 weeks ago. A lady must be in her 60s. And she was telling me that she lived in Arizona when I met her, but in 1970, she lived in Florida, and she banked at a branch of the Bank of America in Florida. In 1970, the bank decided that customers would have to put their thumbprint on checks. And she was outraged and made a big fuss about it, to such a point that the bank manager asked her into his office to come and have a chat about it. And she said, we sat down, and he said to us, look, I want to put in perspective what this thumb thing is, because I want to tell you what's going to happen. And he said, what's going to happen is there's going to be an explosion of credit cards and electronic money. There's going to be the introduction of cameras in the streets and cameras by roads, and eventually a society of total surveillance. Money is going to go out of circulation, physical money, and there's going to be electronic tagging of people, what we would call microchipping, and a stream of other things, he said to her. And his point was, so given that that's coming, it puts putting a thumbprint on a check in some perspective. And this lady was telling me that her and her husband have just been watching over the years since 1970 and ticking off all the things this bank manager said was going to happen, happening. And the question then was, how does he know? Well, one of two reasons. Either he's high enough in the secret society network to have access to that level that knows about this agenda and what's due to play out, or he knows someone who's told him. Because people have found it difficult to accept sometimes over the years when I've talked about how far ahead this agenda has been projected. They don't make it up by the minute or the week or the month or the year or even the decade. This goes way, way back, and it's just totalitarian tiptoe style being introduced piece by piece by piece. And what you have is the secret agenda, which has the agenda to change global society in the way we're talking about. But then alongside that, running with it, is what I call the movie. This is the movie that is given to us by the mainstream media, by education, by politicians, and all the rest of it. The vast majority of people within those groups have no idea what they're actually doing. They're just doing what they're told and don't have any reason why. But the movie is there to explain away the elements of the secret agenda as they're introduced in society, to explain them away as individual changes and individually justified because we got to do this because of that, when actually they're all connected. And so you'll have everything. This is why I'm a dot connector. I mean, when I'm in my books, I massively connect dots between apparently unconnected people, ways of life, and people and economics and the whole bloody thing. And I'll be doing that in Melbourne on the April the 11th. I'm talking for 7 hours there, and I will put all these dots together. And if you don't connect the dots, then the agenda can be not seen because it's being introduced in different elements all over society in different subject areas and different things. But they are in them on of themselves individually explained away, when actually when you connect the dots you can see that they're all the same agenda being introduced, and the tapestry, as these individual changes take place, it starts to create a web and a tapestry of change which now has reached the point where anyone with a modicum of free thought can actually see very clearly unfolding, not only in their own countries but all over the world. The web has now reached the point where it can be seen